Prices are high, the job market is weak, and we're in the middle of a war that no one can really explain or understand. Okay? Those are pretty good reasons to not be feeling great. But what about the stock market? Historically, happy consumers and a high stock market went hand in hand. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I'm your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I believe to be a unique life experience. And you can read more about that in the bio or the notes. My intent is to share stories and experiences and hopefully provide some life and career lessons that will assist you on your journey. Please follow me on Truth Davis 5 at Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. Journal format, I'll share some initial commentary on current news or just some thoughts. Then I'll go deeper on one topic, which will be today's truth. And then I'd like to end with an American history fun fact. Okay. Hope everybody had an enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. I know I did. I had a great weekend as I attended my family reunion on my mother's side, which has been held every Memorial Day weekend since 1973. We actually can trace the family roots back to slavery times, which is unusual for a black family in the United States. In fact, while it's not part of the annual reunion event, we have had reunions with our white relatives who are the slave owner descendants. Because odd as it may seem, they are family, blood relatives. Impressively, one of my white cousins who lives in Boston really wanted to learn more about her black relatives. So a few years ago, she visited my parents in Memphis, and she stayed 2 nights at my parents' home in the historic Orange Mound neighborhood. Hell, I think it's been over 20 years since I spent 2 nights in Orange Mound. But she really wanted to understand and embrace her black family, and she has remained in touch. Only in America. Okay, we are currently in this country in the K-est of K economies. Let's just try to reconcile these 2 data points. Consumer sentiment has tumbled to an all-time low in May as fears of higher prices grow due to the U.S.-Iran war and elevated oil prices. Now, the Consumer Sentiment Index is measured monthly by the University of Michigan, and it's an economic indicator that measures how optimistic or pessimistic consumers are about their personal finances and the overall state of the economy. And why is this important? Because consumer confidence drives the bulk of economic activity. If people are feeling good and confident about their financial situation, they're more likely to spend money. And remember, 67% of the entire United States economy, as measured by gross domestic product or GDP, 67% of it is consumer spending. So in May, the index fell to the lowest level ever since the survey was first conducted in 1952, more than 70 years ago. That's right. Consumer sentiment right now is the lowest it has been in 70 years. Now, on the same day that the Consumer Sentiment Index came out, the stock market reached an all-time high. On Friday, May 22nd, the Dow Jones Industrial closed at a record high, while just a week earlier, the S&P 500 reached an all-time high on May 14th. So, in the month of May 2026, investors are feeling pretty good, while the average consumer is feeling lousy and worried about everyday living expenses. You know, the Wall Street Journal recently published an article with a title that sums up this entire situation. The title, "The stock market has never been so good when people have felt so bad." But how and why did we get here? Well, first, let's look at the consumer sentiment side of this equation. Prices are high, the job market is weak, and we're in the middle of a war that no one can really explain or understand. Okay? Those are pretty good reasons to not be feeling great. But what about the stock market? Historically, happy consumers and a high stock market went hand in hand. In previous periods of high sentiment, the stock market and Americans were responding to a shared optimism. The economy was growing and adding jobs, and inflation was low. Not today. Basically, consumers are saying they're happy about the stock market, but overall, they still feel uneasy. And it's understandable. Inflation is high. Gas prices are crazy. The political environment has never felt more volatile and uncertain. And then there's AI. The biggest thing driving enthusiasm in the stock market lately has been artificial intelligence, which also has been the source of rising angst among many Americans. A world where companies can use AI to reduce labor costs and dramatically widen their profit margins is good for stocks. But that could also be a world where more people struggle to find work. We'll see if these conflicting sentiments continue. Okay, a second item. A couple months ago, I expressed optimism that the do-nothing Congress and Senate would eventually start doing their job. And I made the point that for all politicians, their number one priority is re-election. And specifically for Republicans, they were afraid to disagree with or oppose the president. But there would come a day when they were more afraid of voters than they were of Trump. Well, those days appear to be arriving now. In the past 2 weeks, the Senate has clearly rejected support for two of the president's most dear projects. First, they removed the funding for the president's ballroom. He was asking for $1.2 billion of taxpayer funding for a project he had previously said would be totally funded by private donations. Well, the president may not remember saying that, but members of Congress remember, and they know that many voters remember, so they refused to go along. Second, the president was trying to establish a $1.8 billion slush fund that would be used to compensate people he believed to have been victims of political weaponization by the Biden administration. Such a fund would allow for cash payments to the January 6 rioters, among others. Well, the Senate decided to adjourn and go home for the Memorial holiday break rather than even discuss or vote on this slush fund. So it appears that it's becoming increasingly clear to members of the House and Senate that the president cares far more about his pet projects, legacy, and political retribution than helping them get reelected. He rejects that affordability is a real issue, and he calls it a Democrat hoax. Last week, when asked about high gas prices, he said the price of gas right now was, quote, peanuts to what he was trying to accomplish in Iran. As the year progresses, expect to see more and more Republicans conclude they're better off on their own than remaining blindly loyal to a president that is not helping them get reelected. Okay, let's get to today's truth. Today's truth. You know, it's well documented that the labor market is currently unsettled and uncertain, and that entry-level job prospects are at a 30-year low. And for those that are fortunate enough to currently be employed, Many are pessimistic about their growth and promotion prospects as businesses continue to flatten their organizational structures. As a result, many people have made the decision to work for themselves, become an entrepreneur, often with a service business or maybe looking to be an online influencer. So, how's this working out for folks? Well, in today's truth, we will look at the entrepreneurship trends, including the benefits, the challenges, and the surprising factors that many people overlooked or don't even know to consider. Okay, just to level set, the United States is in the midst of a historic small business surge, with new business formations hitting record numbers. Driven by job market changes, a desire for flexibility, and technological advancements, self-employment and startup creation are actively expanding. Within this, there's also a strong cultural shift with a high percentage of Gen Z workers aspiring to be their own bosses rather than follow the traditional 9-to-5 corporate path. And the numbers are undeniable. In 2025, more than 5.9 million new businesses were formed in the United States. That's an 8% increase over 2024. And so far in 2026, applications are running 25.5% ahead of the same period just last year. And to be clear, there are many potential benefits of entrepreneurship, both financially and personally. Specifically, being your own boss means freedom and flexibility. You choose your own hours and your own rules. My favorite part is there's no one telling you what to do. I know that was my least favorite part of working in corporate America, having to listen to people I didn't respect. Another benefit, unlimited income potential. The potential earnings are not capped by salary. It's whatever you can make it be. Another advantage is you have creative control and innovation. As an entrepreneur, you are only limited by your own imagination. And if you have a great idea, you're free to go for it. Another benefit is personal growth, learning, and skill development. You may think you understand how business works now, but when you are responsible for every aspect of the enterprise, your business acumen will only expand and deepen. And additionally, depending on the business you build, there's an opportunity to leave a personal legacy, as well as potential opportunities for your family and those who follow behind you. Think Five Guys Burgers and Fries. And if you don't know that story, listen to Ruthless Truth episode 39. But all these potential benefits come with some risk and uncertainty. I'm sure many of you have heard the statistics. 50% of new businesses fail within the first 5 years, and 20% fail in year one. But why? Why do they fail? Well, fortunately, we have a large enough sample size to identify a few of the key hurdles that trip up new business owners. Now, my point here is not to discourage entrepreneurship. On the contrary, I believe deep in my heart that the entrepreneurial spirit is what makes this country great. It's just as more and more people consider this path, I want to provide some perspective that may help increase their chances of success. So I want to outline some of the barriers and unexpected realities that new business owners face. Having an understanding of these factors at the onset should help make them more manageable. Okay, first the barriers. All right, barrier one, lack of a market. If there's no market for your products, your business will not succeed. I see this all the time. I am frequently pitched on investment opportunities for new businesses. And my first question always is, well, how big is this market? I mean, how many people are legitimately potential customers? You know, market depth analysis is boring and meticulous, and many new entrepreneurs aren't prepared to make that investment up front. You know, people who like to cook often want to open restaurants, but many fail when the owners either chose the wrong location or decor or were marketing to the wrong set of target customers. Okay, another hurdle, being stubborn and not asking for help. Now, this problem can manifest itself in many different ways, but it generally comes down to an inability to hear, to listen, or to be open to other perspectives. Many entrepreneurs want to be in complete control, so tied to their ideas that they refuse to correct course when necessary. Still, we all can learn something from others who have skills, experiences, or perspective that we just do not have. Another barrier, external surprises or shocks. Okay. Small businesses are particularly vulnerable to recessions and other disruptive macro changes in the market. They have less capital than big companies, to absorb such a shock. They also have less capacity and stockpile inventory and less leverage to renegotiate prices or even change suppliers. As evidence, in the second quarter of 2020, which was the first full quarter of COVID, nearly 9% of all small businesses closed their doors, which is more than double the normal rate. Another challenge for new business owners or entrepreneurs, growing too quickly. Okay, sounds like a nice problem to have, but expanding too fast can stretch a business beyond its means, whether that means buying too much equipment, opening too many locations, or hiring too many employees. It can be very exciting to achieve early success, but don't let the passion and enthusiasm disrupt your business discipline. Okay, so that's just a few of the potential hurdles and barriers that new business owners will need to navigate. Most people get it, and not many are shocked when they hear these. But now I want to outline some events or outcomes that may be unexpected after deciding to start a new business. Okay, number one, income is less than expected. 80% of all entrepreneurs earn less than $100,000 a year. One common miscalculation is confusing business revenue with your actual take-home pay. A business pulling in $500,000 in annual sales might leave the owner with $60,000 in take-home pay after expenses, debt service, and reinvestment. And while we all hear about people getting rich online, the actual median income for online influencers is about $55,000 a year. Another unexpected surprise. You end up spending much more time on administrative activities than you expected. You might think being your own boss means focusing purely on your passion. Well, the reality is over 70% of the time is going to be spent on marketing, bookkeeping, client acquisition, and other administrative tasks. Another big surprise for people who go it alone, it's lonely. Many entrepreneurs express surprise at the degree of solitude in self-employment. You don't realize how much you rely on office banter and water cooler socialization until it's gone. Loneliness is a common early hurdle requiring you to actively build your own community. Okay? Another surprise or expectation, your sleep pattern is probably going to change. You know why? Because you'll be thinking about the business all the time. When you're an entrepreneur, you're always at work. If not physically, definitely emotionally. It will cut into your sleep, relaxation, and time with friends and loved ones. It will take a disciplined effort to compartmentalize your business venture so that it does not overtake your consciousness and ability to enjoy non-business aspects of your life. Okay, let's see if we can close this discussion. If you are considering entrepreneurial pursuits, hopefully I've provided you with some data, insights, perspective that will assist you on your journey. If properly planned and realistically considered, you have an opportunity to start and build something that will provide rewards in more ways than you can imagine. Good luck. Okay, Let's get to today's American History Fun Fact. Today's American History Fun Fact. In episode 40 of The Ruthless Truth, I told the true story of the Statue of Liberty, specifically that it was originally conceived and designed as a celebration of the emancipation of American slaves. That's why the statue has broken shackles on her feet. But, oh my God, I received the most negative feedback that I have ever had, either before or since. Because most people in American history tell the story that the statue was meant to welcome immigrants to the New World, to America. And that's simply not true. But I received comments that I was trying to rewrite history to support a woke agenda and make everything about race. And I was stunned because I wasn't expressing an opinion. It was just facts. But oh well. At the risk of receiving similar feedback again, in today's American History Fun Fact, I'm going to tell you the true story of the origin of Memorial Day. Okay? Now, according to Blight's 2001 book, Race and Reunion, The Civil War in American Memory, a commemoration organized by freed slaves and some white missionaries took place on May 1st, 1865 in Charleston, South Carolina, at a former planters' racetrack where Confederates held captured Union soldiers during the last year of the war. At least 257 prisoners died, many of them from disease, and they were buried in unmarked graves. So the black residents of Charleston decided to give them a proper burial. This is the earliest documented memorial observance, and it was called Freedmen's Decoration Day. About 10,000 people, mostly black residents, participated in the May 1 tribute, according to the covers back then in the Charleston Daily Courier and also in the New York Tribune. Starting at 9 a.m., about 3,000 black school children paraded around the racetrack, holding roses and singing the Union song, John Brown's Body, and they were followed by adults representing aid societies for freed black men and women. Black pastors, they delivered sermons and led attendees in prayer and in the singing of spirituals. And there were picnics. James Redpath, the white director of freedmen's education in the region, organized about 30 speeches by Union officers, missionaries, and black ministers. Participants sang patriotic songs like America and We'll Rally Around the Flag and the Star-Spangled Banner. In the afternoon, 3 white and black Union regiments marched around the graves and staged a drill. Now, following that initial day in Charleston, there were other similar ceremonies in the post-Civil War South, including commemorations in Jackson, Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi, and Columbus, Georgia. Then in 1868, just 3 years after the initial Memorial Day, General John A. Logan, commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, which was a veterans group, established May 30th as a nationwide day to decorate the graves of fallen Union soldiers with spring flowers. The ceremony that took place in Arlington National Cemetery that day has been considered the first official Memorial Day celebration. Now, also in 1968, some Southern public figures began adding the label Confederate to their commemorations and claimed that Northerners had appropriated their holiday. The first official celebration of Confederate Memorial Day as a public holiday occurred in 1874, following a proclamation by the Georgia legislature. Now, by the 20th century, various Union memorial traditions celebrated on different days merged, and Memorial Day eventually extended to honor all Americans who fought and died while in the U.S. military service. The name Memorial Day, which was first used in 1882, gradually became more common than Decoration Day after World War II. But it was still not declared the official name by federal law until 1967. On June 28, 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which moved 4 holidays, including Memorial Day, from their traditional dates to a specified Monday in order to create a 3-day weekend. This change moved Memorial Day from its traditional May 30th date to the last Monday in May. And the law took an effect at the federal level in 1971. Okay. That's all I have for you today on The Ruthless Truth. Thank you so much for listening. Again, follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ruthless Truth. And there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. I encourage and invite you to look at past episodes that cover a wide range of topics that I'm sure you will find some of interest. Again, thanks for listening, and I will talk to all of you soon.